Dominic Ashford fires his entire household staff in under 30 minutes, not for stealing, not for breaking anything, but for filling his home with vanilla-scented candles instead of cedarwood. It establishes Dominic as a man whose wealth has built walls around wounds no one is allowed to see, and whose control over every detail masks a past he spent 20 years trying to erase. The Ashford estate, locally called the Fortress, is a modernist monument to isolation perched on 40 acres of manicured emptiness. Dominic Ashford is known in domestic staffing circles as the incinerator. Agencies warn their best workers away from him, citing a turnover rate that borders on psychological warfare. No one lasts more than 3 months. Most don't make it past 3 weeks. Then his estate manager, desperate and out of options, hires Elena Brooks. She doesn't interview well, she barely speaks. Her resume is a patchwork of night shifts and temporary placements. But she comes with one unusual credential: former employers call her the Ghost. Not because she's lazy or absent, but because she works with such precision and silence that families forget she's there, until they realize their homes have been transformed. Within 7 days of Elena's arrival, the Ashford estate shifts. The cedarwood scent Dominic obsesses over returns without him asking. The books in his study are alphabetized by author, then by publication date, a system he invented but never wrote down. His migraines disappear. He sleeps through the night without medication for the first time in 5 years. Dominic becomes convinced she's hiding something. He begins hunting for her, setting traps, reviewing security footage, rearranging objects to see if she notices. He needs to know who this woman is and why his fortress feels less like a prison when she's in it. And then he sees it, a flash of her hand on the surveillance monitor as she wipes down a mirror in the east wing. On her finger is a ring, crude, handmade, twisted from copper wire into the shape of a small flower. Dominic's breath stops. He knows that ring. He made it 20 years ago with hands that were still small, still dirty, still desperate. He gave it to a girl in Mercy House Orphanage, a girl with dark eyes who split her bread with him when he was starving. A girl who believed him when he promised, "When I'm rich, I'll come back for you." Her name was Elena. The ghost in his home isn't a stranger. She's the girl he abandoned. The promise he broke. The past he built an empire to forget. And now she's standing in his mansion, wearing the evidence of who he used to be. Elena Brooks begins her shifts at 4:47 a.m., 13 minutes before Dominic's alarm. By the time he descends the marble staircase at 6:15, she has already restored order to chaos he didn't know existed. The leather chair in his study, returned to its exact angle toward the fireplace. The curtains in the library, opened precisely 4 inches to let in dawn light without glare. The coffee in his thermos, dark roast, no sugar, still steaming at 178 degrees. She moves like smoke through the mansion's 40 rooms, her footsteps absorbed by Persian rugs and polished stone. Dominic never sees her. Not directly. But he feels her presence the way you feel a change in air pressure before a storm. A door closes softly 3 rooms away. The scent of cedarwood drifts through the ventilation system. A book he threw across his bedroom in frustration reappears on his nightstand, bookmark placed at the exact page he abandoned. He begins waking earlier. 5:30 a.m. Then 5 o'clock. Then 4:30, standing in the darkened kitchen with his phone's flashlight off, listening for her. But she's already gone, or hasn't arrived yet. He checks the security logs. Her keycard registers entry at 4:47 a.m. every single day. Exit at 11:03 a.m. 6 hours and 16 minutes. No variation. Dominic starts leaving tests. A pen placed diagonally across his desk blotter. She returns it to parallel. A window left open in the conservatory. She closes it and wipes the condensation from the sill. He moves his childhood photo, the only one in the house, 2 inches to the left on the mantel. The next morning, it's been moved back. But the frame has been dusted. The glass wiped clean. Dominic stares at his own reflection in that glass and realizes, she's not hiding from him. She's protecting something. And he needs to know what. Dominic installs 3 additional cameras in the East Wing under the pretense of a security upgrade. He tells his estate manager it's about insurance liability. The truth sits in his chest like a stone, he needs to see her face. For 2 days, he watches nothing but efficient movement. Elena dusting baseboards. Elena replacing burned-out bulbs in the chandelier. Elena folding his newspapers into perfect thirds the way his adoptive mother once did. Her face remains turned away from every angle, as if she's memorized the camera locations by instinct alone. Then, on the 3rd morning, she stops. Dominic is reviewing footage at 2 a.m., unable to sleep, when he sees it. Elena stands before the fireplace mantel in the library, staring at the photograph he moved. It's him at age 9, days after his adoption, wearing a suit that doesn't fit and a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. She reaches out, slowly, hesitantly, and touches the frame with her fingertips. Her expression fractures. It's not recognition. It's grief. The kind that lives in your bones and surfaces when you think no one's watching. She closes her eyes, and her lips move. Dominic rewinds the footage, increases the volume, filters the audio. He can't hear what she's saying, but he can read her lips. You promised. His hand freezes on the mouse. The next morning, Dominic leaves the velveteen rabbit on the library side table, spine cracked, pages yellowed. The only book they shared at Mercy House, read aloud by a volunteer on Tuesday nights. By noon, the book is gone. Returned to a shelf in the guest room where it's been untouched for 3 years. Dominic finds it there, placed between 2 hardcover atlases, and realizes she's answering him the only way she can. She remembers everything. Dominic is scanning through Thursday's footage at triple speed when the frame catches Elena's reflection in the gilded mirror of the powder room, her hand moving in smooth arcs across the glass with a microfiber cloth. He almost skips past it. Then the light shifts, and something on her left hand glints dull orange. He stops the playback. Rewinds. Pauses. Her ring finger carries something that doesn't belong in a billionaire's mansion, crude, uneven, twisted from copper wire into the approximate shape of a flower. 3 petals. A stem that spirals twice around the band. The metal has oxidized to green in places, worn smooth in others from years of friction against skin. Dominic's throat closes. He made that ring on a Tuesday in October, 20 years ago, using wire he pulled from a junked radio in the alley behind Mercy House. His fingers bled from forcing the metal into shape without tools. He gave it to a girl who sat beside him during dinner, the one who always slid half her bread onto his tray when the staff wasn't looking. The girl who listened when he talked about houses he'd build someday, cities he'd own, a life where neither of them would ever be hungry again. He told her, "When I'm rich, I'll come back. I'll marry you. I'll give you everything." She wore the ring every day until his adoption. He remembers her fingers clutching the chain-link fence as the black sedan pulled away, the copper catching sunlight like a promise he fully intended to keep. Her name was Elena. Dominic sits in the dark of his office, watching the frozen frame of her hand on the screen, and realizes the ghost he's been hunting isn't a stranger. She's the girl he left behind. 20 years ago, Mercy House smelled like boiled cabbage and industrial bleach. Dominic was 10, small for his age, with eyes that had already learned not to hope. Elena was 8, dark-haired and quiet, the kind of quiet that came from understanding the world didn't care if you spoke. They became partners by necessity. Dominic was fast and clever, he could spot which dumpsters behind which restaurants had the best discards. Elena had small hands that could reach through chain-link fences to retrieve things others couldn't. Together, they scavenged, aluminum cans for nickels, returnable bottles for dimes, copper wire stripped from abandoned electronics. The junkyard on Fletcher Street became their kingdom. One Tuesday in October, Dominic pulled a coil of wire from a gutted radio and spent 3 hours forcing it into shape. His fingers bled. The metal fought him. But eventually, he had something that looked almost intentional, a flower with 3 petals, a stem that wrapped twice to form a ring. He gave it to Elena during dinner, sliding it across the plastic table while the staff argued over medication schedules in the kitchen. "When I'm rich," he whispered, "I'll come back. I'll marry you. I'll give you everything." Elena slipped the ring onto her finger. It was too big. She nodded anyway, solemn as a vow. "Promise? Promise." 6 months later, the Ashford family chose Dominic from a lineup of hopeful children. He had practiced his smile, his posture, his answers. Elena stood at the chain-link fence and watched the black sedan pull away, the copper ring catching the afternoon sun on her hand. Dominic looked back once through the rear window. Then he turned forward and decided to become someone who didn't need to look back ever again. Dominic becomes a hunter in his own home, but the weapons he chooses are memories. He leaves a roll of peppermint candies on the kitchen counter, the kind volunteers handed out at Mercy House on Fridays. By afternoon, they're gone. He finds the empty wrapper in the breakroom trash, folded into a precise square. He places a copper penny on her cleaning cart, heads up, dated 2005, the year he left. The penny disappears. 2 days later, he discovers it in the library, tucked inside the copy of the Velveteen Rabbit at the page where the skin horse explains what it means to become real. She's answering him in a language only they speak. Dominic escalates. He leaves his Mercy House intake photo on the hallway console table, face up, his name visible on the paper clipped to the corner. Elena cleans around it for 3 days without moving it. On the 4th day, she turns it face down. On the 5th, it's back in the drawer where he found it. He writes a single word on a notepad in the study, "Remember." The next morning, the page is torn out. The notepad remains. Dominic watches her on the security feed, trying to read intention in her movements. She scrubs the floors harder. Polishes surfaces that are already gleaming. Moves through rooms with mechanical efficiency, as if emotion can be erased through elbow grease and routine. But once, just once, he catches her standing in front of the fireplace, staring at his childhood photo. Her hand rises to her chest. Her fingers touch something beneath her uniform collar. A necklace, maybe. Or a scar. She doesn't cry. She doesn't speak. She simply stands there, holding whatever she keeps hidden, and Dominic realizes she's not ignoring his traps. She's terrified of them. The Ashford Foundation Gala requires additional staff, and Dominic's estate manager adds Elena to the serving roster without consulting him. He doesn't realize she's there until he sees her across the ballroom, carrying a tray of champagne flutes with the same invisible efficiency she brings to cleaning his home. She's wearing the standard server uniform, black dress, white apron, hair pulled back. And on her left hand, still visible despite everything, the copper ring. Dominic is mid-conversation with a hedge fund manager when Eleanor Whitmore's voice cuts through the chamber music like breaking glass. "Oh my God, is that wire?" The circle of socialites turns. Eleanor has caught Elena's wrist, holding her hand up to the light as if examining a specimen. The copper flower glints dully under the chandeliers. "How charming," Eleanor announces to the crowd gathering around them. "Poverty chic. Is this what the help is wearing now? Handmade jewelry from the recycling bin?" Laughter ripples through the room, polite, vicious, the kind that draws blood without leaving marks. Elena's face drains of color. She pulls her hand back, sets the tray down with trembling precision, and turns toward the service exit. Dominic's world tilts. He sees her at 10 years old, standing at a chain-link fence with that same ring catching sunlight. He sees himself in the back of a sedan, choosing to look forward instead of back. He sees 20 years of empire building, of erasing his past, of becoming the kind of man who belongs in rooms like this. And he sees what that's cost him. Eleanor is still laughing when Dominic crosses the ballroom floor. He doesn't run. He doesn't shout. He simply walks toward the one person in this room who ever knew him when he was real. Dominic reaches Elena as she pushes through the service door. He catches her wrist, gently, carefully, and she freezes. Wait. The word carries across the ballroom. Conversations stop mid-sentence. The string quartet trails into silence. Dominic turns Elena around to face the room. 300 faces in designer gowns and custom tuxedos stare back. Eleanor Whitmore stands at the center, champagne flute raised, smile frozen. Dominic removes his platinum cufflinks, $15,000, custom made, engraved with his initials, and drops them on the marble floor. They clatter like coins in an empty well. Then he kneels. The room inhales collectively. He takes Elena's left hand in both of his, the copper ring visible between their joined fingers. This ring, Dominic says, and his voice cracks on the second word, is worth more than everything I own. I made it 20 years ago in an orphanage with wire I pulled from a junkyard. I gave it to the girl who shared her bread with me when I was starving. The girl who believed me when I promised I'd come back. Eleanor's face drains from flush to crimson to white. I'm the one who should be ashamed, Dominic continues. Not her. Never her. She kept the promise I broke. She remembered the boy I spent 20 years trying to forget. Silence blankets the ballroom like snow. Dominic stands, still holding Elena's hand. Her eyes are wide, brimming with tears she won't let fall. He turns to face the room one last time. The gala will continue without me. Then he walks toward the exit, Elena's hand in his, and for the first time since he was 10 years old, Dominic Ashford leaves the empire behind and chooses the girl at the fence. Elena doesn't go back to the mansion. She takes a bus to the south side, transfers twice, and walks 3 blocks to a building Dominic has never seen her enter. He follows in his car, parking across the street, watching as she climbs the exterior stairs to a 3rd-floor apartment with peeling paint and a window unit air conditioner held in place with duct tape. He waits 10 minutes before knocking. Elena opens the door still wearing her server uniform. Behind her, 2 teenagers look up from homework spread across a cramped kitchen table, a boy around 16, a girl maybe 13. Both have Elena's dark eyes. How did you? Elena starts, then stops. She already knows. I found you 5 years ago, Dominic says quietly. I've been paying your rent. Their school tuition. Your brother's asthma medication. The orthodontist bills for your sister. Elena's hand tightens on the doorframe. The anonymous benefactor, she whispers. I couldn't face you. I told myself I was helping, but really I was just paying for absolution. Dominic's voice breaks. I promised you everything when we were kids. Then I got adopted and I became, he gestures at himself, the custom suit, the watch that costs more than this building. I became the kind of man who writes checks instead of keeping promises. Elena's siblings are watching now, silent and wide-eyed. You left a copper penny in the Velveteen Rabbit, Dominic continues. The page where the skin horse says that once you're real, you can't become unreal again. I've spent 20 years trying to become unreal. Trying to forget the boy who made that ring. Elena's eyes shine with tears. You kept it, Dominic whispers. All these years. Why? Because you were the only person who ever promised me anything, Elena says. And I needed to believe someone could. 1 year later, the Ashford estate no longer echoes with emptiness. 12 former foster children live in the renovated wings, attending the on-site school Elena designed. The cedarwood-scented library is now a study hall. The ballroom hosts community dinners every Thursday. The guest rooms have been converted into bedrooms with names on the doors, painted by the kids themselves. Dominic still wakes at 4:47 a.m., but now it's to make coffee for Elena before she starts her rounds. She's no longer a ghost, she's the director, the heartbeat, the person who remembers every child's birthday and favorite meal. They marry on a Saturday in May, in the chapel at Mercy House Orphanage. The building has been condemned for 3 years, but Dominic pays to have it open for one afternoon. Elena's siblings sit in the front row. 12 children from the estate fill the other pews. Eleanor Whitmore is not invited. When Dominic places the ring on Elena's finger, it's not diamonds or platinum alone. It's copper wire twisted through a platinum band, crude metal braided with precious, the past woven into the present. Copper, he says, his voice steady now, certain, because that's where we started. And where we'll always return. Elena looks at the ring, then at him, and her smile is the same one she wore at 8 years old when she believed impossible promises. You kept your promise, she whispers. You came back. I never should have left. Outside, spring rain begins to fall on the chain-link fence where they once said goodbye. Inside, 2 people who survived by scavenging have finally found what they were always searching for. Not wealth. Not empires. Each other. Real, and irreversible, and home.